Kobe Bryant's daughter finds a letter he wrote before his death and shares it with the world. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The Bryant home sat under a pale afternoon sky, wrapped in a silence that seemed to seep into the walls. Isabella Bryant sat alone at the kitchen table, half-heartedly scrolling through her phone. The world outside kept moving, but inside these walls, time dragged its feet. It had been over a year since the accident, but the sharp edges of loss hadn't dulled. Her mother had gone upstairs hours ago, exhausted from another day of smiling through interviews and appearances that felt like obligations rather than honors. Isabella had stayed downstairs, pretending to do homework but doing nothing at all. She looked over at the stack of unopened boxes her mother had pulled from the storage closet. Old memorabilia, jerseys, photo albums, trophies. All of it untouched since before the crash. For reasons she couldn't explain, Isabella stood up and wandered over to the pile. She brushed her fingers over the cardboard flaps, feeling the dust that had settled there. Part of her wanted to turn back, to leave it buried. Another part knew that if she didn't do it now, she never would. She picked up the lightest box and brought it to the living room. Sitting cross-legged on the floor, she lifted the lid. At first, it was just framed photos, family vacations, Gigi's basketball games, holidays filled with the kind of laughter that now felt foreign. She shifted the photos aside and spotted a small black folder. Tucked inside was a single envelope. Her heart stalled. It was addressed simply, Bella. She recognized the handwriting instantly. Bold, slanted, confident. It was Kobe's. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the envelope, the weight of it far heavier than paper should be. Part of her wanted to rip it open, another part wanted to toss it into the deepest drawer she could find and forget it existed. She sat there frozen for minutes, her mind spinning in 1,000 directions. Finally, she placed the envelope on the coffee table and just stared at it. Across the room, the muted television played highlights from a Lakers game, but she barely heard it. Her world had narrowed down to that one piece of paper. Footsteps sounded upstairs. Her mom was moving around, probably getting ready for another meeting she didn't want to attend. Isabella knew she could call her mother down and open the letter together, but something told her this was meant for her and her alone. She reached for it again, holding it delicately, like it might vanish if she wasn't careful. She slid her finger under the flap and slowly broke the seal. Inside was a single page, folded neatly. She unfolded it, her breath catching as she saw the familiar script. Dear Bella, it began. I know you're probably rolling your eyes reading this, thinking, Dad is so dramatic. Maybe I am. But if you're reading this, it means you're turning 17, and I'm not there in person. Her eyes burned, and she blinked rapidly. I want you to know something important. You are not me. You're not Gigi. You're not anyone but yourself. And that's exactly who you're supposed to be. Isabella wiped a tear away with the back of her hand. She kept reading, drinking in every word like it was the air she hadn't realized she was desperate for. You have a fire in you, Bella. A stubbornness that used to drive me crazy when you were little, but now? It's your greatest gift. Don't let anyone, not the media, not coaches, not even yourself, clip your wings. Fly messy if you have to, but don't stop. There was a pause where the ink seemed a little heavier, like he had pressed harder. And if you ever feel lost, go back to the court. It's where you'll always find yourself. At the bottom, in tiny letters, he added, P.S. Check the folder. Left you something. Her eyes darted back to the folder she had pulled from the box. She hadn't looked through it, too distracted by the envelope. She opened it now and found a series of handwritten notes, drills, workouts, even play diagrams. At the very back, a typed-out email. It was an entry form for a tournament. But not just any tournament. It was the West Coast Rising Stars Showcase, a secretive underground tournament where raw, unsigned talent went to battle it out in front of hidden scouts and coaches who preferred grit over hype. The form had her name listed under an alias, Bella Knight. Signed and submitted. Her heart hammered in her chest. He had planned this. Entered her in a tournament she didn't even know existed. Months before the crash. Before everything shattered. The air in the room shifted, heavy and charged. It felt like Kobe was standing there with her, hand on her shoulder, that half smile he always wore when he knew he was pushing her toward something uncomfortable but necessary. For the first time in months, Isabella stood up with purpose. She tucked the letter carefully back into the envelope and slid it into her hoodie pocket. She wasn't ready. She was out of shape. Her shot was off. She hadn't touched a basketball seriously since before the crash. None of it mattered. This wasn't about winning. It wasn't about living up to Kobe's name or carrying the weight of his legacy. It was about answering a call she didn't know she needed. She grabbed her worn sneakers from the hallway, the ones she hadn't had the heart to throw away, and headed out the front door without saying a word. She knew the old outdoor court nearby would be empty this time of day. The breeze was cool against her face as she jogged toward the park, the city sounds muted under the beat of her own pulse. When she reached the court, she found it deserted except for an old man shooting free throws at the far end. He gave her a nod, then went back to his routine. Isabella stood at the top of the key, ball tucked under her arm. The cracked asphalt under her feet felt familiar. Grounded. Real. She bounced the ball once. Twice. The sound echoed through the empty court. She closed her eyes and took a shot. It clanged off the rim. She chased it down without hesitation. Again. And again. And again. The sun dipped lower behind her, but she didn't stop. For the first time in a long time, the silence didn't scare her. It fueled her. She wasn't trying to be Kobe. She was trying to be Bella. And for now, that was enough. The next morning, Isabella woke up sore. Her arms ached, her legs protested when she swung them over the side of the bed, but she didn't mind. It was the kind of pain that meant something. She hadn't felt it in a long time. She tied her hair back and headed downstairs where her mother was already on a call in the living room, talking business in a low, tired voice. Isabella grabbed a protein bar from the kitchen counter and stuffed it into her hoodie pocket. She didn't want to answer questions. Not yet. She needed to see if yesterday was just a moment or the start of something real. At the court, the same old man was there again, shuffling around the free throw line, taking his shots in silence. He nodded at her but said nothing. She liked that. No attention. No pity. Just two people working in the same space for their own reasons. She pulled out the folded paper Kobe had left, his handwritten workout, and started from the top. Footwork drills. She stumbled at first, her timing off. She could feel her muscles fighting against the memory of movements they once knew by heart. But she stuck with it, running lines until her lungs burned. She spent an hour there, maybe more, before collapsing onto the sidelines. Her water bottle was empty, and her hands were raw from gripping the ball so tightly. She leaned her head back against the fence and closed her eyes, letting the breeze cool her sweaty face. A voice broke her focus. "You training for something?" the old man asked, tossing his ball into the hoop with a casual flick. She shrugged. "Maybe." He smirked. "That's not a maybe kind of routine." She smiled a little but didn't explain. He didn't push. Instead, he picked up his ball and wandered off, leaving her with her thoughts. Later that night, after sneaking back into the house without being noticed, Isabella sat at her desk and pulled up the tournament email on her laptop. The dates were only 2 weeks away. She clicked through the information carefully. No team assignments. Just solo registration. Players would be drafted into squads after a series of drills and scrimmages. Anonymous entry. No fame. No last names on the roster. It was exactly what she needed. The first problem hit her when she checked the tournament requirements. Players had to submit a 2-minute highlight reel as part of their profile. No exceptions. Isabella didn't have one. She hadn't played organized ball in almost 2 years. Panic stirred in her gut, but she shoved it aside. She would find a way. She had to. Over the next few days, she built a routine. Wake up early. Train at the court. Study game footage Kobe had left behind. Work on her conditioning in the garage, running suicides until she could barely breathe. By the fourth day, the old man at the court started rebounding for her without being asked. Still, he didn't ask for details. He just passed her the ball over and over, a silent accomplice to her mission. At night, she stitched together a makeshift highlight reel using old footage her mom had filmed during her freshman year games. It wasn't flashy, but it showed enough: her handles, her vision, her defensive grit. It would have to be enough. The day she submitted her application, she almost didn't hit send. Her fingers hovered over the mouse, fear creeping in. What if she embarrassed herself? What if she wasn't good enough anymore? What if the world only ever saw Kobe's daughter and not Bella Bryant? She gritted her teeth and clicked send. Done. The email confirmation popped up seconds later, but there was no relief. Just a gnawing knot in her stomach that tightened with every passing hour. The next day at the court, the old man finally spoke more than a few words. "You move like you've been coached right," he said, watching her sink 3 jumpers in a row. She gave a small laugh. "Yeah. You could say that. You planning to show the world or just us pigeons around here?" She spun the ball on her fingertip for a second before letting it drop into her hands. "Maybe." He chuckled. "Good. 'Cause pigeons make lousy agents." The week leading up to the tournament passed in a blur. Isabella barely slept, nerves and excitement battling inside her. Her mother noticed the change but didn't press. Maybe she sensed that pushing would make Isabella retreat. Finally, the day arrived. Isabella packed her bag early, triple-checking everything. She wore plain black shorts and a gray t-shirt. Nothing flashy. No logos. No hints of who she was. She tied her sneakers tightly, her hand steady even though her heart was anything but. At the venue, players gathered in a long line outside a converted warehouse gym. The air buzzed with energy, shouts, laughter, sneakers squeaking on concrete. Isabella kept her head down and waited her turn at the check-in table. The man behind the desk glanced at her ID, then at the roster. "Bella Knight," he said, marking her name off with a thick black line. "You're in Group C." She nodded and moved inside without a word. The gym was massive, with 4 full courts running simultaneously. Coaches and scouts leaned against walls, clipboards in hand. Players stretched, passed balls back and forth, showing off their skills casually but intentionally. Everyone was here to get noticed, even if they pretended otherwise. Isabella warmed up quietly in a corner, bouncing on the balls of her feet to shake out the jitters. She could feel eyes on her, but she didn't care. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here to prove to herself that she could still stand on her own. When the whistle blew to start the first round of drills, Isabella tucked Kobe's words into the back of her mind. Play free. The first drill was simple, ball handling through cones. She attacked it with sharp, controlled movements, not flashy but clean. No wasted motion. She caught a few raised eyebrows from coaches, but she didn't acknowledge them. Next was shooting off the dribble. She hit her first 3 shots, missed the 4th, then adjusted her footwork and sank the last 2. Some players showboated, spinning passes, throwing no-look assists. Isabella didn't. She stayed steady. Efficient. When scrimmages started, players were randomly assigned to temporary teams. Isabella found herself matched with 2 quick guards and a tall forward with an ego bigger than his skill set. The team huddled briefly, the guards talking over each other while the forward barked instructions. Isabella said nothing. When the game started, chaos erupted. Players jockeyed for shots, jacking up ill-advised threes, throwing lazy passes. Isabella stayed calm, reading the flow. She picked off 2 lazy passes and fed her guards with clean looks. She boxed out on rebounds. She played defense with quiet tenacity. No flash. Just results. By the end of the scrimmage, her team had won, mostly because she kept the whole mess from falling apart. One of the scouts scribbled something furiously on his clipboard as she walked off the court. She didn't look back. She didn't have to. She knew. She was just getting started. The next morning, Isabella woke with a stiffness in her legs that only a day of nonstop running could cause. She winced as she stretched but welcomed the ache. It was proof she was still moving forward. At the tournament gym, the energy had shifted. Players who yesterday had laughed and joked were now quiet, focused. Today was when the serious cuts would be made. Only half of them would be drafted into teams for the real tournament games. The others would go home unnoticed, just another face in a crowded gym. Isabella kept her head low, laced up her shoes, and warmed up in a corner by herself. No coaches came over. No players tried to buddy up. She preferred it that way. The loudspeaker crackled. All players, Group C, report to Court 2. Isabella jogged over and lined up with the others. Today would be full court games, real play, no mercy. It was the kind of environment Kobe had thrived in. Now it was her turn to find out if she had the same fire or if it had died out with him. The first game was a mess. Players fought for shots, forced bad passes, and tried to go viral with flashy dunks. Isabella watched it unfold with a calm that surprised her. She didn't force anything. She moved without the ball, found open lanes, made clean passes. Midway through the first half, her defenders started trash-talking. You think playing quiet's gonna get you noticed? They want stars, not nobodies. Isabella didn't respond. She let her game do the talking. When the defender got sloppy, she picked his pocket clean and drove down the court for a smooth layup. She didn't celebrate. She didn't even glance at the coaches. The defender got angry. Next possession, he shoved her as she cut past him. She stumbled but kept her footing, swinging the ball to a teammate for an easy jumper. On the sideline, a coach in a gray sweatshirt leaned in and whispered something to the scout next to him. Both pairs of eyes locked onto her after that. After the game, players were herded back to the sidelines to wait for their evaluations. Isabella wiped sweat from her forehead and sipped from her water bottle, feeling the adrenaline settle. A few players joked around loudly, trying to hide their nerves. Others sat silently like her, bouncing their legs, tapping their feet, waiting for their name to be called. When the staff member finally stepped up with the clipboard, the gym went dead silent. These players have made it to the draft pool, he announced. Names started flying out of his mouth. Isabella heard a few, recognized a few faces. Bella Knight. She barely heard the rest. Relief flooded her body. She was in. She didn't smile. She didn't cheer. She simply nodded to herself and stood when her group was called forward. The coaches gathered around them for final instructions. Each coach would draft 5 players to form a team. Isabella stood at the back, not expecting to go early. She wasn't flashy. She didn't showboat. When the third coach pointed at her and said, "Knight, you're with me," she blinked in surprise. The team he was building wasn't made of highlight reel guys. It was grinders. Workers. Players who made winning plays without needing the spotlight. Exactly where she belonged. They were given black and white jerseys and 15 minutes to gel before their first real tournament game. In the huddle, the coach, a short, wiry man with a no-nonsense voice, looked them over. "We're not here to look good," he said. "We're here to win. You follow the plan, you'll play. You freelance, you sit." Simple enough. They hit the court as underdogs against a team stacked with athletic freaks and YouTube-famous guards. The whispers around the gym made it clear no one expected Isabella's team to last 5 minutes. The game tipped off. Right away, the other team tried to bully them. Full court press. Trapping Isabella as soon as she touched the ball. Shoving after whistles. The kind of tactics designed to break weak minds. Isabella stayed calm. Every trap, she split cleanly or found the open man. Every shove, she absorbed and moved on. Midway through the first half, the game was tied, and the crowd started paying attention. Coaches shifted forward in their seats. Scouts scribbled faster. The other team's star guard, a flashy player with $1 million smile and a college offer already lined up, grew frustrated. He started barking at his teammates, throwing his arms in the air when things didn't go his way. Isabella read it instantly. She started baiting him, sagging off just enough to make him shoot contested jumpers, forcing him into bad passes. Quietly, steadily, she was dismantling their entire rhythm. With 2 minutes left, the game was still neck and neck. Isabella's team had the ball, and the coach called a timeout. In the huddle, everyone looked at each other, exhausted but locked in. The coach pointed at Isabella. "You see it, right?" She nodded. "Good. Your ball. Run what you see." The whistle blew. Play resumed. The gym's noise faded into a dull hum in Isabella's ears. Everything slowed down. She dribbled calmly up the court, watching the defense. The star guard was overplaying her, desperate to force a turnover and get a fast break. She waited. Baited. At just the right second, she spun away, splitting two defenders, drew the help defense, and slipped a perfect no-look pass to her forward under the basket for an easy layup. The gym exploded. Up by 2. 30 seconds left. The other team panicked, jacking up a rushed three-pointer. Missed. Isabella pulled down the rebound herself and was immediately fouled. She walked to the free throw line, the weight of the game in her hands. The gym went silent. She bounced the ball twice, eyes steady. Kobe's words floated back to her. "Play free." She released the first shot. Swish. 3-point lead. The second shot. Swish. 4-point cushion. The other team scrambled for a miracle but couldn't find one. When the buzzer sounded, Isabella's team erupted in cheers. She let herself smile, a small, private smile, and accepted the high fives without letting her guard down completely. She wasn't finished yet. She hadn't even started. As they filed off the court, a buzz swept through the gym. People were asking the same question. Who was Bella Knight? And where the hell did she come from? Isabella didn't have time to celebrate. Right after the game, the coach called them into a quick meeting behind the bleachers. He kept it short. "You proved you belong. Now stay sharp. Stay hungry." They broke the huddle and scattered to grab water or stretch. Isabella sat alone for a moment, her legs humming with exhaustion. She knew there were more games ahead. Winning one meant nothing if she couldn't back it up. As she untied and retied her shoes, a few players from other teams wandered by, giving her sideways glances. Some looked impressed. Others looked annoyed. She could feel the shift. They saw her now. She wasn't invisible anymore. It didn't take long for the first crack to appear. A girl named Mariah, who had been playing on a different squad, slid onto the bench beside her. She was flashy, loud, always surrounded by a group. "You're Bella Bryant, right?" Mariah said casually, loud enough for others nearby to hear. Isabella stiffened. She said nothing. Mariah smirked. "Come on. I recognized you yesterday. Figured I'd let you have your little secret." Isabella kept her eyes forward, voice even. "You're mistaken." Mariah laughed, not believing it for a second. She leaned in closer, dropping her voice just enough. "They're all gonna know soon. Might as well get ahead of it." Isabella stood up, grabbing her water bottle. She didn't owe her anything. She walked away without a word, but her heart hammered in her chest. She had wanted to be judged on her game, not her bloodline. That dream was hanging by a thread now. Sure enough, by the next game, whispers filled the gym. Coaches pretended not to hear, but players were glancing over their shoulders. Someone had pulled up old photos. Someone had compared shots, mannerisms. It spread faster than she could control. Isabella tried to tune it out, tried to focus on the court. Her team faced off against a bruising, physical squad that tested them at every turn. Cheap shots. Hard fouls. Trash talk every trip down the floor. She absorbed it all, fighting back the way Kobe had taught her, with her game, not her mouth. Late in the second half, her team clung to a 3-point lead. Isabella orchestrated everything, calling plays, setting screens, dishing assists. She was the engine that kept them moving. But the crowd wasn't watching the game anymore. They were watching her. Watching Kobe Bryant's daughter. The moment she stepped off the court after another win, 2 college recruiters approached her, practically blocking her path. "You've got talent," one said, flipping through a clipboard full of forms. "We'd love to talk about a spot. Full scholarship. Big opportunity." The other recruiter chimed in, smoother, more aggressive. "You've got a legacy name. It's a story people want. We can build something huge around you." Isabella felt her stomach turn. They didn't see her. They saw headlines. Clicks. Another golden child to parade in front of cameras. She forced a polite smile and told them she needed time to think. They handed her business cards anyway. When she got back to the team area, the coach pulled her aside. "Recruiters are sniffing around you," he said. "Don't let it mess with your head. You're here because you earned it. Nothing else matters." She nodded, but the weight sat heavy on her shoulders. That night, alone in her room, she spread out the business cards on the desk. She stared at them, feeling the pressure building in her chest. This was supposed to be her moment. Her fight. Her journey. Instead, she was being boxed up, sold, marketed. Kobe's words echoed in her mind. "Your game is yours, not mine, not the world's." She picked up the cards one by one and tore them in half. Then again, into smaller pieces. Until nothing was left but scraps. The next morning at the gym, the tournament semifinals were posted. Isabella's team was seated against one of the tournament favorites, a squad full of ranked prospects already signed to big-name programs. The gym buzzed with excitement. Everyone expected them to lose. Badly. As Isabella tied her shoes in the locker room, one of her teammates, Dez, a lanky shooting guard from Oakland, sat down beside her. "You good?" he asked. She shrugged. "Always." He chuckled. "Heard the noise. About who you are." She waited, ready for the usual fake compliments or snide remarks. Instead, he offered a fist bump. "Doesn't matter to us," he said. "You ball." "That's it." She bumped fists with him, a small knot loosening in her chest. When they hit the court, the air was electric. Fans packed the bleachers, phones out, recording every move. The opposing team came out cocky, flexing, laughing, tossing alley-oops during warm-ups. Isabella's team warmed up quietly, focused. The whistle blew. The game started. From the first possession, it was clear the other team underestimated them. They tried to bully their way to easy points, but Isabella's squad fought back, playing smart, moving the ball, switching defenses mid-play. Isabella controlled the tempo like a conductor leading an orchestra. Every pass, every screen, every defensive rotation, she saw it all before it happened. Still, it wasn't enough. By halftime, they were down by 10. In the locker room, the coach paced, face tight with frustration. "You're getting pushed around," he snapped. "You want it? Go take it." Isabella stood up. She didn't yell. She didn't make a speech. She simply said, "We stay together. We play our game." Simple. Clear. When the second half started, Isabella led by example. Diving for loose balls. Fighting through screens. Making the extra pass. Little by little, they chipped away at the lead. With 2 minutes left, they were down by 3. Isabella drove hard, drawing the defense, then kicked it out to Dez for a wide-open 3. Swish. Tie game. On the next possession, she stole a lazy inbound pass, took it coast to coast, and finished through contact. The gym erupted. They never gave the lead back. When the final buzzer sounded, Isabella dropped to her knees, exhausted but victorious. They had done it. Not because of a name. Because of heart. Because of grit. As she stood, the crowd chanting, cameras flashing, she realized something. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't running from Kobe's shadow. She was standing in her own light. And she was ready for whatever came next. The championship game came faster than Isabella expected. The night after their semifinal win, she barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw plays, heard sneakers squeak, felt the ball in her hands. Morning came gray and heavy. A light drizzle misted the streets as she made her way back to the gym. She liked it. The weather matched the seriousness in her chest. No bright sun. No fake smiles. Just a quiet focus on the mission ahead. When she arrived, her team was already stretching. No music blared today. No trash talk filled the air. Everyone knew what was at stake. Across the gym, their opponents warmed up, tall, athletic, polished. Another group of future college stars. Isabella didn't look at them long. She wasn't here for them. She was here for herself. Their coach gathered them into a huddle before tip-off. "You earned this," he said. "Nobody gave you a damn thing. Play your game. Trust each other. Let's finish it." Simple words. The right words. The game started with brutal intensity. Every possession was a battle. Every rebound was a war. The refs swallowed their whistles, letting them play through contact. The first quarter ended with Isabella's team down by 6. The second quarter got worse. Their opponents ramped up the pressure, throwing double teams at Isabella, daring her teammates to step up. The physical toll started to show. Des took a hard hit on a drive and limped to the bench. Their center fouled out early. By halftime, they were down by 12. In the locker room, the coach kept it short. "Nobody's gonna save you. Dig in. You came this far. Finish it." Isabella stood in the corner, holding the basketball loosely in her hands. She thought about the letter tucked safely in her bag. About Kobe's words. Never let fear clip your wings. When they came back out for the second half, something shifted. Isabella looked her teammates in the eyes, and they nodded. No speeches. No promises. Just fight. They chipped away slowly. Stops on defense. Smart passes. Hard fouls when necessary. No easy baskets. Isabella played possessed. Diving for loose balls, weaving through defenders, absorbing hits that rattled her bones. With 3 minutes left, they cut the lead to 5. The gym roared with energy now. Fans on their feet. Phones held high. The world watching. The other team started to feel the pressure. Their shots tightened. Their passes grew sloppy. Isabella smelled blood. With 90 seconds left, down by 3, she pulled up for a deep jumper off a broken play. Swish. Tie game. The gym exploded. On the next possession, Isabella's defense forced a turnover. Her team had the ball. 30 seconds left. No timeouts. No plays drawn up. Just instincts. She held the ball at the top of the key, her defender low and twitching, daring her to make a move. She could hear the clock ticking in her head. 15 seconds. She dribbled left, hard, then crossed over, stepping back behind the arc. 10 seconds. Her defender bit on the drive, giving her just enough space. She rose up, smooth and steady, releasing the ball at the peak of her jump. For a split second, the world froze. The ball arced through the air, spinning perfectly. It hit the back rim, bounced up, and dropped clean through the net. 3-point lead. The gym erupted so loud it shook the floor. The other team raced down court, desperate, launching a wild shot at the buzzer. It clanged off the backboard harmlessly. Game over. Isabella dropped to her knees, overwhelmed by exhaustion, joy, disbelief. Her teammates mobbed her, shouting, laughing, pulling her up into their arms. In the middle of it all, she smiled. A real, unburdened smile. Not because she had proven anything to the world. Because she had proven it to herself. When the award ceremony started, her coach pulled her aside. "They want you to make a speech," he said, handing her the mic with a smirk. She hesitated. She wasn't big on speeches. She preferred letting her game speak. But maybe, just this once, it was time. She walked to center court, the mic in her hand feeling heavier than any basketball she'd ever held. The crowd quieted. Cameras pointed at her from every angle. She cleared her throat. "I'm Bella," she said simply. "No last names tonight." Some people laughed, unsure if she was serious. She continued, voice steady. "I found something before this tournament. A letter. From someone who believed in me before I even believed in myself." She paused, feeling the lump rise in her throat. "He told me to play free. To not let fear clip my wings. To trust myself, not the noise." She looked around the gym, at the players, the scouts, the fans. "This game isn't about names. Or followers. Or fame. It's about heart. It's about who you are when nobody's cheering." She held up the championship ball. "And tonight, this is for every kid who's ever doubted they belonged." The crowd erupted into cheers. Isabella turned and walked off the court, handing the mic back without another word. Later, outside the gym, she sat on a bench alone, cooling down in the misty night air. Her phone buzzed nonstop with texts, calls, notifications she ignored. She reached into her bag and pulled out the letter one more time. The edges were worn now from being opened and folded so many times. She read it again, quietly, smiling. "Your game is yours," Kobe had written. "Fly messy if you have to. But don't stop." A car pulled up, and her mother stepped out, tears in her eyes but smiling wide. They didn't speak. They just hugged, a long, silent embrace that said everything. Isabella knew the world would find out soon enough who she really was. But for now, under the quiet stars, she wasn't Kobe Bryant's daughter. She was just Bella. And she had finally learned how to fly.